Good morning, all. Give me a second. I'm just going to test out the audio, make sure this is working. So you might hear double audio for a second. Good morning, all. Give me a second. I'm just going to test out the audio. And some weird music playing. Ah, that's probably Twitch. Okay, cool. And some weird music playing. Yes, okay. I can hear myself on Twitch, and I can hear myself on Facebook. Sweet. How's it going, everyone? Good morning. Well, it's morning here in Los Angeles. I'll be on live 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. today. Thanks for joining me. Post questions in here. And I need to log into Twitch, so let me do that. And of course, it starts off another ad. Okay, cool. Double check this is solid. Cool, cool. All right, let's give it a couple more seconds for people to arrive, and then we'll get cracking. Okay. Let's find some music in the meanwhile that we can play during today's stream. All right. So people joining in on Facebook. Alan, Toko, Afori, hi, how's it going? Cool, cool. We got a few more people watching on Twitch. All right, time to get started. Okay, so where do I begin? This is a sculpt that I started last week from scratch, just laying out the base shapes for a concept by Ryan Winch, a friend of mine who's a concept artist. So we're going to continue that this week and see how far we can take it in another couple of hours. Probably going to try to think about it as if it were a miniature and try to get it ready for printing at miniature scale. That's something I like to do with all of my prints. No matter how big they're going to end up being, just start thinking of them as miniature prints so that I can get the detail in where I need it to be. So I'm going to get into that in a second, but first I've got to do my usual spiel for those of you that are new and joining me for the first time. Alright, so my name is Aiman Akhtar. I'm a 3D artist in Los Angeles, and I've been doing a lot of 3D printing in the past 4 or so years. You can find more of my work at aiman3d.com, and there's all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of like 2D to 3D character maquettes. There's concept art maquettes that I got to work on and print. There's stop motion animation work for Stupid Buddy Animation Studios. There is large-scale prints, like this Evil Knievel statue I worked on, as well as this giant Overwatch statue with Alliance Studios. And most recently, my wife and I, we launched our own independent toy line, Fungusors, little dinosaur mushroom hybrids. So that's kind of been taking up all of my time. Let's see, what else? If you want to see any of my previous streams for ZBrush, you can go down here, and there's all sorts of 3D printing stuff I cover. So you can go to pixelogic.com, ZBrushLIVE presenters, and scroll on down till you find the blue shirt. And you can see my streaming schedule here. I'm on Mondays, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can see some of my art and all the streams that have been done. Yeah, that have been done. So I don't know. I think I'm on stream number 16 or something like that. So majority of the time I do some of my Fungusors stuff, like I'll come up with a new character concept and then push it to sculpt completion and print it out and prototype it. Other times I've done stuff for the company I'm currently working with, HeroForge.com, doing some mini stuff, and then just all sorts of posing and character stuff that I'm always into. Also did like a suit, like a whole fully printed 3D outfit. So you can check those out in my previous streams. Since we're on the topic of Fungusors, and I showed you what I'm building, we got some exciting news on that front today, which is my beta testing for my game is going live today. So this is the first time you get to actually hang out and play with some of these characters that I've been working up. They started out as sculpts, got 3D printed to get prototyped, then I turned them into full-fledged toys, and now those toys are becoming an augmented reality game. Kind of like a mix between Pokemon Go and like Tamagotchis, like, you know, the old school pets. But I'm really excited to start launching the beta today, so if you guys are interested in helping me beta test this game and give me some basic feedback, because it's still a pretty, you know, temper your expectations. It's still a beta game, but if you're interested in checking it out and helping me beta test, you can go to Fungusors.com and then sign up for email updates right there. Drop your email address and I will send you a link. You need to have an iPhone because it's built for iOS right now using ARKit 2.0, and you need to have today's latest iOS build, which is iOS 12, just came out today. So you need both of those things, but if you sign up for email updates, I will send them to you. Alright, sweet. I'm so excited. Yeah, it's a big deal for me because I've never released a game before that I made by myself. And so me, my wife, and Zach, our programming friend, are pretty much 3 people indie team built this whole thing together. Mustache070 says, is that a Form 2 printer back there? Indeed it is. That is my Formlabs Form 2. And on this side, I've got a Raise 3D N2 Plus. So this is an FDM printer for, what's the word, prototyping and large-scale printing. And this is a SLA resin-based printer for more detailed work and smaller scale stuff as well. Both of these printers are about the same price range, about $3,000, so they're in the professional price class, but they're both really awesome. It's great to be able to prototype on the fly whenever I want. Alright, cool. Sweet. Okay, Silent Hero is asking, will it work on iPads? That's a good question. I don't know yet. It's a beta test, so if you want to try downloading it on your iPad and see what happens, let me know. I think it's designed for iPhones, so I might end up limiting it to iPhones. Alright, speaking of prints, I do actually have a print I need to take out of the Form 2. So I'm going to pop this screen up for a sec, and you guys can watch how I take a print out of this printer. So I don't even know if you can see it from there, but that's basically saying print finished. So step 1 is glove up. I feel like Dexter every time I do this. Did anyone ever watch that TV show, Dexter? It was that serial killer who kills serial killers. Alright. Pop the lid open. Pop the lever up at the top. Slide it out. And it's that simple to get the print out. And you can see here it's a very small print. It's a jewelry prototype I'm working with for a client. So I'm going to take that off. It's something simple, just a little, I don't even know what to call these anymore, levers? Alright, so I'm going to do this off screen because I need my hands. Basically, just getting this under the print and then just popping. That's it. And here you go. Comes right off. Clean. This is printed in Formlabs Clear. And what I want to do now is put it in isopropyl alcohol solution to start getting any of the resin that's hanging on off of it. So popping that open, dropping it in, and splashing it about a bit. Alright, next step is to just take a little piece of paper towel and just wipe this build tray. This is pretty necessary, I'd say, just, you know, keeping your resin print environment clean, because what if I wanted to use not clear resin but gray resin next, you know? Then if I had a bunch of clear on here, it would mix. So you want to keep this stuff clean when you're working on it. Another thing, I sometimes double check this, but like you can just take a little spatula, a little bit of scraping, and you can see like it's not much, but like some tiny stuff comes off sometimes. Scrape that off. And I usually dip the paper towel into some isopropyl solution and then wipe again. Does that. I'm going to put it back in the printer. And tell us that print was successful. And we're ready to print again for round 2. Well, or for something completely new. We'll see. Maybe we can get this character that we're working on today ready to the point where we can print it in miniature just to see what it would be like. Okay, cool. I'm going to let that print that just came out soak for maybe another few minutes, and then I'll take it out and start cleaning it up. Until then, reminder, if you want to join my Fungusors AR game beta, go sign up on the site, fungisaurs.com. I have no problem with shameless self-promotion, so I will drop that into the comments. Yeah, and then for some of you, you've been watching me work on these Fungusor characters over the course of the past year. And for some of the streamers, I've been streaming this stuff, I don't know, for about 2 months, making some new ones. So hopefully you're a bit invested in it too. Okay, what is next? So, I'm gonna pop into ZBrush. Let's see. Answer a few questions of yours. Greg Metcalf is saying, where are the toys? That's a good question. I think they're on my table. Okay, so Greg, the toys are in transit right now. They're on their way from a factory in China, shipping across the ocean to me now. I actually think I have a pretty fun image for that, if I can find it. So many images. Let's see here. Nah, not there. I'm going to switch this to view large icons. Here we go. Toys are on their way. Toys are coming. I'm actually making a Kickstarter update probably tomorrow, in which I talk about the completion of the toy cycle, which is now I'm going through customs and bonds and fees and tariffs to get my 16,000 toys that we made, the first order, shipped across the ocean to us. So that's something I have to handle later today. So if all this stuff goes well, if everything gets on a boat, which it should be, we should have the toys within a month. And then backing the Kickstarter, all the Kickstarter backing will be fulfilled hopefully by November. So not bad. Did a Kickstarter last November, fulfilling it this November. Pretty proud of myself. Okay. So let's move on then from Fungusor stuff to back to this print that we started prepping last week, or back to this character that we started last week. Let me see if you guys have any other questions. Sir Wolfard is saying, how do you like printing with the SLA printer? Was it easy to get started with? It was not easy to get started with because I had a Form 1 3D printer, the one before this one, and that one had some issues still. It wasn't as refined. The Form 2 is kind of a workhorse. Like I've done 30 prints in 30 days and they all print. without failures. And once you figure out, proper orientation, proper supports, proper hollowing, once you understand 3D printing, you can have a much better success rate. SLA is not easy. It's a bit clean. It's a bit messy, and yeah, the results can be not perfect depending on a lot of factors. Your resin material, your printer, your lasers or projector quality, the bottom of your trays, how much they've been used, or if one area has been used more than others. So there's a lot to learn with 3D printing. It's not like a replicator yet, like a Star Trek's replicator. You just press a button, you have a thing. It's not there yet. Mustache is saying, think I need to move out of my country. It costs like 40K here. You really could buy a house. It's true, man. Some places, they don't ship these 3D printers to yet. I think Formlabs is based somewhere in the Midwest in the United States. So I've heard friends in Australia and other places complain about how expensive it is to get it shipped over there. But on the plus side, let's see, since we're on the topic, I can mention a couple of new 3D printers that are out or almost out right now. Let's see here. Alright, so we've got a few different printers that you guys can look at and choose from. I recommend looking up this one, the Anycubic Photon. It's an SLA printer that is cheaper than the Formlabs, and it is, by all reviews, a pretty solid machine. So check out the Anycubic Photon. There's another one which is the Spark Maker, which is SLA 3D printer also, and it's very affordable. It's not that big, so it's not got a massive build volume, but it's pretty affordable. And these guys that are creating this printer have released a printer on Kickstarter before, and they were able to deliver. So, and they're pretty affordable too, $498, $279. So, yeah, you got 7 days left on that Kickstarter. And another Kickstarter going on right now is the Daz 3D printer. It's an LCD 3D printer. Let me see, where is the Kickstarter for this? They really should have a link from their website. Alright, Daz 3D Kickstarter. And that is 25 days to go, and they've already blown past their goal, so that's going to happen too. And this is an SLA 3D printer. It's kind of DLP mixed with SLA, I think, because SLA means lasers to me. It's a couple of lasers that mirrors hit at the bottom, and then they bounce around and light up your print. So I think this is that kind of printer. Usually the DLP projectors need a bigger base one. So this is not bad. There's some early birds left for like $600. Anyways, the downside, I'll warn you right away, with backing a printer on Kickstarter, it takes a year or two to get, and sometimes it just doesn't get to you at all. Like, they sometimes drop the ball. I've had a few printers that I backed on Kickstarter which dropped the ball. So you basically have to hope that you get it. There's no like legal protection in place for people perfectly, But sometimes the good thing is they do international shipping, and some of these guys ship directly from Shenzhen. So it might be easier to get the printer rather than waiting on a supplier here like Formlabs to start shipping to your country. All right. Spectre Dave saying that man just got a Form 2 chilling behind him. It was cranking all night. All right, cool. Brett Klish, friend of mine. Hey, how's it going, dude? Form 1 was horrible. It had its issues for sure. I mean, it's the printer that got me hooked onto 3D printing. So it wasn't horrible, but it did have a lot of horrible issues. All right, Zoltan is from Singapore. He's saying the Anycubic Photon is awesome. The way to start SLA printing. Highly recommended, and especially considering the price. It's pretty easy to use as well. Good. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about the Anycubic, so happy to recommend it. And if you guys are looking for an FDM printer, I highly recommend the Raise 3D. It's the same price as a Formlabs. It's about $3,000, $3,500, but you can get a 12-inch by 12-inch by 24-inch print. So it's just a massive build volume for the price. Cool. All right. So now that we have talked a bit of shop, we've talked about 3D printing, and we've talked a bit about my Fungusors beta app launch today. I'm going to just get into sculpting. So this character, we basically laid out the base shapes last week, and this is how I start most of my sculpts. Is a very simple blocking pass. Often I'll sculpt them in place. So I'm not going to sculpt a T-pose and then pose the character. I'll do that if it's a character for games or animation. But if it's a character for 3D print, where the end result is a statue or maquette, I'm not going to waste time with the T-pose. I'm going to sculpt directly in place. And it's actually better for concept work. It's better for getting a character's kind of appeal and feel and emotion and dynamism come through in the sculpt if you go jump in asymmetrical sculpting like that. It does help to have some reference up on your second monitor, and it helps to have a backdrop image. So I'm going to load it up first. In the texture tab, I've got a statue turn, and I will select it and add it to my spotlight. Alright, so here is the turn made by my friend Ryan. Ryan's one of my artists that I go to when I do some Fungusors concept work. And you can see the character he's set up here. Now it's not a perfect 2D turn because it doesn't align 100%, and that's normal. Actually, that's most of the turns that I get, that's the case, where they're not perfectly aligned, but they're more of like a feel of the character from like multiple angles. So what I want to do right now is start laying down more base elements, start defining more features, and basically get this model from just base mesh to miniature scale print mesh. And I can maybe do that in an hour and a half because miniature scale doesn't have a ton of detail. So we just have to, you know, get a mini prototype ready and then get that ready for print. And that way we don't waste a lot of material, and we can see if it's working in physical form. We can see if it looks good, and we can see if it rests well, and basically just test the engineering of it. Spectre Dave is saying he's going to pull the trigger soon. Spent a good $3K on 3D hubs by now. Yeah, man, I started and I didn't have a 3D printer. I spent a lot of money with Shapeways and 3D hubs when I started, and just local maker spaces around. And then now I've, you know, worked up my way to having a couple of printers. And the good thing about having your own printers, as opposed to using services like Shapeways or, you know, there's so many services now, Materialize and EX1, or, you know, basically any of the 3D hubs, is that you don't have to wait. So, you know, prints take a while still. They take about a solid 5 to 10 to 20 hours. So it's nice to have your own printers for prototyping sake, because I can start a print at night, wake up in the morning and have the print rather than wait for it. Because shipping services like Shapeways, sometimes it takes, I mean, they can take like a week to get to you, or 2 weeks. All right. This print has been soaking in isopropyl for a little bit now. I'm going to dexter up again and take that out. Okay. So I'm just going to take a second and clean it up with my paper towel. This print isn't like particularly delicate, so I can be a bit more rough with it, with the cleaning. And I don't know if you guys can see this, probably not because it's printed in clear, but there's logos on the inside of this mesh which need to be cleaned. So what I like to do is just use a regular brush. This is a brush I've used for a lot of different things, and then just get those bristles in there and do a little bit of cleaning that way. And the whole purpose of this is to just remove any excess bits of resin that are clogging up any of the like crevices in the print. Yeah. Okay, yeah, not bad. So now it's basically ready for me to start removing the supports and get the print ready. But you've seen me do this before. It's basically just taking a modeling clipper and sanding it a bit. If you guys have any questions or want to see it, I can show you how I go about it. But that one is pretty good. It's not going to take me long to do later. Okay. If I was really trying to be a perfectionist, I'd probably do another isopropyl bath, like a clean one after the dirty one, and probably, do a couple more rounds of that. But I don't need to for that specific print. Jewelry and smaller prints, you shouldn't soak them too long. If you put them in isopropyl alcohol for way too long and it's a thin, small print, it starts warping. Someone is calling me on Facebook right now. I can't. I'm busy, y'all. Okay. RoboForce Go is saying, man, I just got the Form 2 last week and have had only one successful print out of 5. That's what I mean. I mean, the printer is solid, and it's basically not hard to use. It's got that LCD screen, but you need to know what you're doing when you're 3D printing. You need to know about orientation, proper supports, and proper, 3D print etiquette, I guess, for model files. Having completely closed surfaces, having no intersecting edges. Yeah, basic things like this will really help you learn a lot with 3D printing. I had a lot of failures when I first started 3D printing. So don't worry about failures, RoboForce Go. They happen, but you just get better and better with them over time. Wait. Curious, what kind of failures are you having? Are you having failures where the print drops or shears? Let me know in the comments and I can let you know how to help. Okay, let's get this sculpt started. So, now that I've got this, excuse me, I'm going to shrink this screen down a bit. Okay. You can hear my corgi barking in the background there. That's probably going to happen. Alright, so now that I've got this model laid out and I've got the texture added to Spotlight, I can scale it down a bit, reduce the opacity a bit so I can see what I'm looking at. And I can just kind of have it in there as a reference or guide. So what I tend to do is I like to do a couple of things. I can either scale it down and just have it around, or I can try to match to the character's scale and then just turn it on and off again. I think that might be a better case because I want to be able to see it pretty large. Alright. So what I need right now is to add more of these elements. There's hoses, there's tube, there's a glove, there needs to be work done on the face, and just more overall detail needs to be sculpted in place. Okay. Let's take a look at what our local symmetry is for some of these parts. Like say if I wanted to sculpt some stuff into this backpack of his, this robot backpack. And if I turn on X symmetry, or maybe Z symmetry, there we go. If we turn on Z symmetry with local turned on, local symmetry, it should work. Actually, you know what? I think I created this at symmetry, point at origin, and then I started moving everything else around it. See, that was just good forward thinking on my part. I'm going to duplicate that mesh, divide it a few times. All right. And one thing I want to do also, which I forgot to mention, is if you're using Spotlight to bring images into your file, you're going to want to turn on Spotlight projection. So you have to go under Brush, I believe it's under Brush, Samples, and then turn off Spotlight projection. If you have Spotlight projection on, it won't let you actually sculpt. It won't let you smooth or sculpt stuff on your mesh when Spotlight is on. Okay. All right. So now what I want to do is just start adding a little bit of these details. So like that, these details up at the top. Let me see what exactly is happening up at the top. Looks like there's a bit of a separation thing up at the top. Comes down, little circle, scrolls down. Okay, can do that. So this first pass, whenever I do this kind of thing, it's always very blocky, and that's fine. All right, cool. I should be a bit more precise about that. A couple of ways I can do that. You can use an alpha, like alpha 09, to drag out a perfect circle. And then go back to my freehand with a thin alpha, like alpha 36 selected. I wish sometimes that it was easier to do some of these things like in Photoshop and stuff, when you hold shift, it just kind of draws a straight line. I wonder if there's a trick like that in ZBrush too. All right, these should be auto groups so they can be separate pieces, and I can turn them on and off. And I want to turn this on so I can see what I'm looking at and draw these concentric circles around the edges. Looks like there's one big one and then another small one. Looks like it needs to be a bit larger than that. Let's draw another one. Now this second one is a bit too thick. So what I can do is adjust this alpha itself to make it a bit thinner. That is under alpha, and we can modify it. So you can see any change that I make to this alpha graph, they're reflected in the image above. So I want to make that line basically just really thin. A bit better. And I can also go in just with pinch. Just kind of pinch it a bit. Like I said, this is not the actual thing. I might actually use some Z modeler to make this perfect later. But right now we're wanting to get everything up to the level of a mini sculpt. All right, got that in there. Next up, some of this stuff. Looks like it's a bit too large. Helps to have your concept right in front of you sometimes. And that's one issue with, hiding it back and forth when you work sometimes. Okay. Go back to pinch. Pinch that tighter a bit. Cool. All right. Another thing I can do is use my masks. So I can use a mask like that, maybe soften it up, or go under my masking tab. Let's see here. Sharpen it. I can sharpen it, I can grow the mask, I can sharpen it again. So this is a bit topology dependent. So sometimes it's best to just draw a clean mask and unmask the points that you don't want to affect. And since we are at 0, 0 origin, I can go to my deformation tab and do an inflate down a bit. And there you go. I've got that line in place. Okay, so got that. Little bit of not sure what's happening up at the top because the references don't exactly match, but that's all right. Looks like there's a line along the sides. That I can do. There's these arms coming out. There's this area kind of extruded forward where the belt buckle comes out of. All right, so need a line going along the edges, and we need holes there. And I'll just make this flat, thing at the top. Let's just make it in right now. So one thing I can do actually is before I do this inflation bit, I can go to my geometry tab and store a morph target. So you can't do this with what is the word? You can't do this with multiple subdivisions. All right. So what I want to do is maybe divide it one more time. No, that's too much. Way too much. I'm going to delete lower basically on my subdivisions. And I'm going to unselect this top area so I can have that flap. It looks like that flap starts around center point. It just comes a bit forward till about there. And then I will do my inflate deformation. Cool. Then I'll go back to my damn standard brush. I don't know, I like damn standard. I don't know how people get by without it, but then there's a lot of people that have their own favorite brushes. What do you guys use? What's your favorite brushes? I'm going to switch off activate symmetry on the Z and now do it on the X. Oh, I'm going to make sure perspective is off. I should have done that for the first one too. Oh well. Okay. And I'm going to go to my inflate again and just inflate that down after unmasking the area I don't want affected. All right, and go ahead and inflate this down. That went a bit too deep. I think I'm going for about an inflation of like between 15 or 12 or so. And we can just Dynamesh this as well. Got to make sure I Dynamesh at a high enough resolution to clean that up, but we'll do that after. Do that after I do a bit more dam standing. Dam standing? Dam standarding. Alright, next I want to make this flap up at the top. So I'll turn on my Z symmetry again. Want to turn on my lazy mouse radius. And probably pick a bit of a thicker alpha. Make sure my alpha adjust is back to normal. So I'll take this middle one and just drag it out. When you drag that point out, it drops it, and then your alpha goes back to normal. I may actually want to make it a bit sharper. There we go. Okay. Looks like it's a bit wider than I've got it here in my reference. But I think that's because I've opted in favor of making these side hatches a bit larger than they are in his reference. That's okay. This is a base sculpt for something that I'll probably end up redoing anyway. Okay. I want to take these edges of these bits and add some stuff to them as well. Go back to my dam standard. There we go. I'm going to select only these parts, the edges, and I'm going to switch my mask from a mask rectangle to a mask lasso. Just kind of lasso the ends. Invert that selection, and I want to kind of inflate the whole thing out. So I'll go into deformation and inflate. Let's maybe try, I don't know, 50. That's a bit too much. Let's try inflate balloon and see what that does. You got to be careful when you're working with the deformations tab. It can crash you very quickly without warning. So just in case, I'm going to save. We got a spirited discussion happening on Twitch about the print failures. So I can jump in on that shortly. Daniel saying, hi, you can hold shift and drag straight, as in Photoshop. Erwan saying, I'd like to see the whole thing again. Is it recorded and posted on the YouTube channel? Yeah, dude, let's see here. If you want to see any of my previous streams or this one later, you can go to pixellogic.com, ZBrushLIVE, Aiman Akhtar, and you can scroll down and see all of my streams are down here. Okay. Now that this is saved, I can do an inflate again. Let's try maybe 30. And let's try you doing a little bit of a move. If you tap and drop your move icon or transpose line, it'll basically go perpendicular to whatever mesh you're clicking on. And then I can just move this whole thing up a little bit. And that just creates a nice disc kind of effect. Cool. All right. What else? What else? Got these along the edge. I need to add the little holes in the back for where the tube comes out of. That should be pretty straightforward. And I need to probably not have these, I don't even know what they are on the sides of it. I want to call them Chun-Li buns. That's what I'm going to call them. I want to make sure I have those not floating. I need something to make sure that they'll print. So I want to get this stuff figured out. And probably flatten that edge a bit. I can go to my clip curve brush. Just clip the edge as well. Clips pretty nicely. And looks like there's a bit of a bevel in there where everything kind of moves in and then that cylindrical cube comes out of it. At least if I think I'm reading it properly, that's what's happening. So you can play with all the different mask options you've got, and you can mask circle as well. So I'll try to line up my view, make sure my perspective is off. And you can draw this out and you can hold space to move it into place. So just mask that, unmask this bottom area, and now I should have a couple of masks there. I'm going to smooth this out a little bit, invert it, go back to my move transpose that I showed you the trick, tap it down there, and it'll, wherever you tap, it's going to be perpendicular to the area that you just selected. And I'll just move that down. Now you'll notice that some of the edges won't be perfect, so sometimes it's best to hold Alt as you do this. I believe it was Alt. I thought it was Alt. It's like a way to extrude rather than... Alright, I'll figure that out later. For now, I'm just going to push it in. And I may try to inflate it as well. Let's see what happens. There we go. Just sharpens it up a little bit. I'm going to also wanting to just have this edge be a little cleaner. So I'm going to go to my mask options under masking. And I'm going to shrink the, or invert this. I'll shrink the mask a little bit. Sharpen it. Shrink it again. Sharpen it. Soften it. And then I will do a bit of a scale. Increase the size. Or let's try inflating. One or the other always works. There's just a little bit of inflation. And now I can just smooth it out. Alright, and then I'm going to go to my Insert, Primitives, grab a cylinder, and I want to drag and drop that there. That's probably too big. It turns solo off so it doesn't hide my mesh when I do it. And switch to my transpose tool, make sure that's buried into my mesh. And I will probably split that off. Split unmasked points. Do that and then split unmasked points so that I can divide this up a little bit. Looks Looks like it divided. It started like smoothing it a bit. And I don't want too much of that. And something I can do about it is I can go in my Z modeler and add a few more edge loops to these so that they won't smooth so roundly. You see what happens? I don't want it doing that. So I'll go to my ZM. Okay, already got it up. I forget sometimes that I've set up hotkeys for myself. Ryan Winch has joined. What's up, Ryan? Working on your concept right now. All right. Mine's already set to add an edge loop wherever there's an edge that you click on. Because in ZModeler, you can click on faces, you can click on edges, you can click on vertices. So if you hold space, it'll tell you the option of what is happening. So in this case, if I hover over an edge and hold space, it says insert single edge loop. So this is going to add a bunch of edge loops. And since I'm working symmetrically, it's added them to both sides. And now when I divide, you see it's not rounding anymore because I added more edge loops. Simple. All right. So looks pretty good. Looks pretty close to his concept. I may want to inflate those a little bit larger. Just a touch, just a smidge. All right, cool. And merge that down. So that's almost a self-contained backpack unit. Want to add a couple of these things. Lastly, he's got a couple of lines here to signify, just to make the shape more interesting. So I want to add those. And then, let's see, I'm trying to find a reference for where the edge of that stuff is. So I want to add that, and then the little hole for where the seat belts are going to be coming out. And we can even add the seat belts. Okay. I'm going to press D, S, damn standard. I wish I could just set my hotkey D to be damn standard, but that's also what ZBrush uses to divide things up and down. So I don't know. I'm hesitant to change standard default and hotkeys. Mostly because if I go teach somewhere or do a demo on this topic somewhere else and they don't have my hotkeys, then I have to relearn stuff. That sucks. All right, I'm going to try to have symmetry on for X and Z at the same time. That way I can do these changes. You know what? Let's try. No, that won't work. I got greedy. I was thinking if I could have X and Z and Y on at the same time. I don't know. I got it a bit more curving around, which his doesn't do. But sometimes that's what you have to do as a 3D artist, is try to find how a shape is going to look better in 3D than it would in 2D. Because if I just did this straight line, now it kind of interferes with the circle and it doesn't look as nice. So that's our job as 3D artists, is to kind of see the 2D artist's vision and apply it, but also think about 3D space. You have to engineer for what it's going to be. All right, next up, adjusting that. Increase my draw size up a bit as well. My lazy mouse radius is really, really high. Too high. It won't really let me sculpt. There we go. And I want to fill that in, so I can just use my clay brush to fill that in a bit. Now you can tell mine's still pretty blurry and wonky because I'm restricted by the topology of the mesh below it. But that doesn't matter because this is just sculpting it up, and we're going to clean it up later with the retopologized mesh. Or am I just actually, this is a pretty blocky mesh that is well suited to poly modeling. Alright, I was dumb, so I didn't think to check that I still had X symmetry on, so it added that stuff over here as well, which doesn't look like is the case. Yeah, there's no indent over there. This one's specifically for the seatbelt to pop out of. Seatbelt? Backpack strap. So what I can do is go to my morph target, because I believe that should still be accurate. I thought I stored a morph target. Did I undo past storing my morph target? God damn it. Okay. Well, let's try something. This rarely works, but it may. I'm going to duplicate this mesh. I'm going to undo back to where it was. You know what? I'm not going to undo. I'm just going to go to ZProject from where I'm at. Confusing steps. I'm going to duplicate this as is. I'm going to go back in history on that mesh to where I didn't add those. And I'm going to try to project from the top down. So I use my ZProject brush to fix things. That didn't fix things. All right, make sure those are on. Oh, I had Z sub on. I have to make sure Z add is on. There we go. And then when I hide it, there we go. All fixed. Million ways in ZBrush to do something if you really look. Probably do the same thing on this side. And you know what? This should be a symmetrical mesh. So what I want to do is go under my geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld. And I want to make sure that it's mirrored perfectly. Not on the x-axis, but on the z-axis. There we go. We can tell that it fixed that issue because it's mirroring from this side. And since this is a symmetrical mesh, we do want it mirrored. Alright, so need to add a couple more things, and this backpack is in a good place. Want to add a hole that the hose can come out of, which is right there. And it looks like that hole is basically near the bottom. Around, say, there. Select my alpha 06, increase my Z intensity, set it to Z sub. And I might sharpen this alpha a bit. So I'll go to my alpha adjust, just sharpen it. I mean, it seems to me like it's pretty close to that line. So I want to take a look at it from a few different angles of this turn. Yeah, but not like a real clear view of it that seems to be close to the line along the edge. Okay, then that's what it is. I may also go into, with my alpha 9, get rid of that. Try to do a Z add along the edges. What's happening here? That's strange. That is funky. I wonder if I turned something on in the spotlight projection that changed things. Clone, smudge, contrast, hue, intensity, paint. Don't think so. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and do it a different way. If you get stuck, do it a different way. Oh, you know what? The best way for this, since what I'm trying to do is basically make a donut, is to probably add a donut. Go to my insert primitives, add a cylinder pipe, drop that in place, and move it in place. Now see, I'm dumb. Now I forgot that symmetry is off, and I'm only doing it on that side, which is the wrong side. I forget sometimes. Okay. I want to work on this side, and I want to make sure symmetry is on now. I believe for the z-axis. Yep. It's strange. Usually it draws it out. It'll actually rotate it in place for me. I'm going to split that on mask points. I'm going to divide them a bit. Delete lower. And just move them out a bit. It's looking good. Maybe hit the whole thing with a little bit of inflate. It gives us a nice beveled edge for the hose to stick out of. Okay, cool. All right, so we're getting this all laid out. What is your guys' specialty? Guys and gals on here, would you say organic comes more naturally to you, organic sculpting, or this kind of hard surface mechanical sculpting? I'd say definitely organic for me. Organic, simplified, toony stuff. That's just how my mind thinks a bit. Alright, cool. Now that I've got all these pieces that I need, I'm going to merge down. And I probably want to add the areas where the belt's going to be coming out of for me. Just for my own reference. I think this should also be a bit wider. I'll go ahead and make it wider. Cool. So it looks like in his concept, the belts stick out of these kind of little, they're basically cubes, but they're at an angle. So I just need to make some cube edges and kind of taper into, just taper down. So I'll go again to my insert primitives. I'll grab a cube and insert cube. Now you see if it's just too far out and you want it to be a bit buried, you can go under brush, not brush, and then adjust the depth. So if I just pull this depth down a little bit, you can see I've got it in my, actually you can't see it because my stream window is blocking it, but I've got it on the left side of my screen at the bottom. And then if you reduce the depth, then this will be a bit buried. You can see if I draw it off on the edge, how buried it is. Okay. To do that, I'm going to go to my rotate, and now rotate should be auto-aligned to the thing I just drug out there. Rotate that up a little bit. Looks like I should rotate it this way a bit as well. And bury. Cool. That gives me an area for the seatbelt to stick out of, just like that. And let's see, since I already have the scale of it figured out, I'll just duplicate it and bring it down for this one. So I will go to split unmasked points again, and I will dupe. And move him down. And rotate. Now I probably do want to have solo turned off when I do this, so I can see what I'm doing in relation to my character. Because no point in spending a lot of time looking at it and refining it and perfecting it if it's not going to be ending up at the right place. So it looks like it's a bit, I don't know, high still. It needs to be at the character's lower waist point, so about there. But I think the whole backpack just needs to be lowered a bit so it sits on his back a bit better. Looks like I've got a couple of these meshes on. There. I'm going to move it back a bit. And I probably want to rotate it down just a touch too, so the straps can come out ready in the right angle. Okay, cool, looking good. And let's merge these down. All right, I can toss some of these earlier ones now. There we go. We've got the backpack almost blocked in. And now what I've been trying to explain is that I'm sculpting this whole thing for miniature scale first, so I can do a quick mini print test and then see what it looks like, which is why I don't care about the details being perfect. This is going to be printing about that scale. And when you're printing at that scale, you just want a hint of the detail in there and larger than it would be so that you can read it all. So that all the detail reads. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Alright. One thing that's been bugging me is that in his concept, he shows that this flap up at the top is a bit wider. And so I want to fix that. I want to make that flap a bit wider. One way I can do that, now that I've got all my mesh in one place, and I can duplicate it, and I can dynamesh it all. Let's see, 128 resolution is way too low. Let's do 500 first. Yeah, that's about a mil, and I don't really lose any detail. So 700 should do the trick. All right, cool. So what I want to do is basically, like this concept, make this flap a bit wider up at the top. And I think I couldn't do that because I was restricted by the space allowed by this thing on the side. So I'm just going to use a bit of sculpting to fix it. What I want to do is, let's see, I'm going to use my mask lasso tool to select these edges. Let's just select everything up into here. And what I want to do is then just select any of the extra stuff I need. Cool, cool. I don't know, this might not work, but it's worth a shot. Invert that. I'm going to scale the whole thing down. So I'm going to go deformation, reduce the size, click on move, just tap on that end right there so it comes out in the right scale. And just get some more space in there for that flap to actually extend out into. Cool. Scale looks like it scales it a bit closer in that direction. So I want to move it back this way. Yeah, that's because that's the origin and I moved everything back a little bit. Now, since this one is there and it's a good reference for me, I can use it. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to get rid of these guys on the sides by auto grouping, deleting hidden. Turn that back on. Just move it back into place. That way I can get a perfect sphere wherever I want a perfect sphere. Cool. And geometry. Divide, divide, divide. Delete lower. You can probably clip or hide the bottom half. Now I can use it just as a projection surface, or I can just merge it into my existing mesh wherever I want it, just to smooth things out a bit. But we'll see. All right, so what I want to do, I don't know, let's try using it as a projection surface, because all I want to do is basically fix the edge here. All right, so I'm going to go to ZProject. And try to project that one from right above it. I'm going to make sure Z add is on. And with ZProject, you really should be looking in the direction that you're projecting. Yikes. Looks like some janky stuff happening on the other side. May not be perfectly symmetrical there. You know what? Hell with it. I'm going to move forward, and I'll mirror and weld it. Okay. Let's see what's happening here. This is why, yeah, if I see a few of the comments with people saying I do organic sculpting in Max or Maya. Same here. I like sculpting in ZBrush for layout and blocking, but some of the hard surface stuff I haven't mastered yet. And I like to do that in Maya as well. Or Modo. Modo is solid for that kind of thing. But it is perfect. ZBrush is the perfect tool for laying it all out. So you know exactly what to do and where to do it in Maya and ZBrush. Alright, I'm going to do another geometry, modify topology, mirror, and weld. And that should fix that side. And I'm just going to come in with my damn standard tool and fix some of this. And with it now being dynameshed, you can fix some of this weird stuff in the middle too. Oh, you know what? This is the whole point. The whole point was to make this wider. So let's get rid of this. And then draw it back on a bit wider. Alright, not enough resolution here with 1.85 million polys. What I could do is dynamesh it a bit larger. So I might do that. We'll see. Now, when you're at this resolution and starts getting lumpy, and you don't want it lumpy, you want to be able to smooth things out, right? But smooth doesn't work. So one thing I like to do is go to my light box under brushes and go find smooth. And you want to find smooth stronger. Now, smooth stronger is a really cool tool for being able to, no matter what the density of your mesh is, it'll smooth it out. It'll find a way. And of course, dynamesh often, so your topology doesn't stretch. Okay. This is going to go in and get rid of some of this lumpiness. Sounds like a word our president would create. Lumpiness. Okay. Use some of H polish as well. I've got to respond to this text. Okay. Fixing things up using damn standard, H polish, smoothing, really whatever we want. You want to make sure we're finding the right angles to fix stuff too. That's one thing I've noticed, like the direction I'm looking at something in ZBrush really affects how the brushes work. And I'm making all the detail a bit larger than it needs to be, just so that I can properly see it at mini scale. Let's go ahead and make that flap, which is the reason for all that extra work. I'm going to my dam standard. Increase my lazy radius again. Make sure that draws out straight. Lower it back down and close it up. Alright. Again, not worried if it's perfect, but I do want it to read when I printed just now. Yeah, H-Polish is definitely one of those brushes that works based on the direction that you're looking at something. I want to make sure that this is, in fact, straight as it can be. I think for this edge, I'll just come in and refine it a bit. I want there to be a bit of a bend here, bit of a rotation. A bit smoother, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Cool. And then now, zoom out, Dynamesh the whole thing again. And let's see, mirror and weld again. Cool, cool. Without some of these side jankiness. Alright, spending too long on the backpack, so I'm going to move on now to the rest of the body. And just do the same thing that I'm doing here, basically. Start adding more of these shapes and base stuff. Okay. Neat. Alright, I'm going to save this out. And I'm going to move it. Let's see if I can move it a little bit more, the position, so that this one strap on the right-hand side isn't so far away. Turn off my symmetry, move this whole thing over a bit. And that'll help improve the silhouette of the character as well. The straps will be closer, and it'll look better. Yeah, because I can see on this side, it's the whole backpack is a little bit further on the right. Yeah, like that. Probably good to align it a bit with his back direction as well too. Let's try that. Rotate the whole thing a bit. Move it over. Move it down. Oh, there. There, perfect. And I do want to kind of exaggerate his turn a bit. So I do want this to be a little bit straighter than the rest of his body. because the backpack, it would eventually come. You know, it's a secondary object. Cool. All right, so let's mock up those straps going down to wherever they would be. I'm going to save this again. And we can use the tubes, the curved tubes, to draw those out. Let's look at what questions you guys have got going on Facebook. Ryan's commenting, there is an inward back pad. It can be seen, but it's shown on the standalone pack image. Okay, gotcha. I think he's referring to this thing that you can barely get a glimpse of over here, which is kind of a pad that the back could sit on, which would make it, I guess, a bit more easier to carry, and probably, I don't know, maybe it's like a whole suit that can encompass him or become a mech. I have no idea. But that back pad should also be sculpted into place, is what he's saying. Or at least we should know that it exists. I think he sent me a concept image which has just the standalone thing. There we go. So there's the back pad, which can basically, I guess it's a carrying comfort thing. So I wanted to make that in there as well. And then the tubes. The tubes. So I'll leave this reference off open to the side. Let's see here. And close out of that. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Make sure to go to my Fungusors.com website and sign up for email updates as I'm launching the beta today, which looks like this. So if you want to help me out and play this game and give me some feedback as to what works, what doesn't work, would you recommend it to a friend, would you not, what would you like added to it, let me know. That is Fungusors.com. Sign up for email updates and I'll send you a link to the beta. If you have an Apple iOS 12 with, I don't know, I think it's an iPhone 5 or above, then yes. Yes, please. Move this over, back into ZBrush. And let's see what questions you guys have going on Twitch as well. How's it going, Twitch? You can see yourself. All right, Facebook is all good. Didier Comte say bonjour. Bonjour. All right, so what have you guys been talking about on Twitch? Sometimes I zone out and I forget about it. All right, so Robo Force Go had been asking or mentioned that he got a Form 2 and not that many successful prints so far yet. Using durable resin. Okay, that's one I'm already not familiar with as much. I use the tough resin pretty often, but I haven't used durable yet. Let's see. After the first failed print, there's a little bit of cured resin that I have trouble filtering out of the tank. Okay, so when you have failed prints in an SLA machine, I'm going to move this over because it's annoying to see that window effect. After the first failed print, you have a little bit of cured resin at the bottom. You actually have to use your spatula to get under there, clean up any of the uncured resin that's in your tank. That's one of the downsides of working with SLA, is it's messy. You know, you got to clean up any unused resin. I actually have a comb I use as well, and I take that comb and I scrape my tray to make sure I can get any uncured resin particles. Because if you have any of those uncured resin and it's stuck at the bottom, the laser can't actually get through and hit your build platform. Using a paint filter to strain the resin, but there's super tiny particles. Don't worry about the super tiny particles. I never have. It's basically just the big chunks that you need to worry about. And new resin tanks, yeah, see, you do need to order new resin tanks, but it should last you from between 10 to 20 prints. Like, it shouldn't go per print. That gets expensive. There's no instructions for completely rinsing out a tank. No, I think the idea that Formlabs has is that you want one tank per material. So, like, I have a gray resin, I've got a gray tank. A clear resin, I've got a clear tank. I've got a tough resin, I've got tough tank. Just talking about different cleaning solutions. IPA, definitely. IPA shouldn't be used on tanks because it can crack the plastic. I don't know. I've always used it, so maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it's never caused an issue with me. And I did get some LT tanks recently myself too, so I'm interested to see how long they last. If they really follow the claim that they last 10 times longer than the regular tanks. Cool, I'm glad to see Digital Armory and RoboForce Go having a good conversation about 3D print stuff. Yeah, I didn't get LT tanks because they were really expensive for the longest time, and I just now got a couple. All right, so SculptMens84 is asking what happened with the Android people. So I will release my Fungusors app on Android eventually. First, let me get the iOS release done. One thing at a time. Especially when you're in a small team with like 3 or 4 people trying to build a game, you can't think about everyone. You have to make one thing first. One thing at a time. All right, cool. Yeah, so if you guys have any more questions, just paste them in Twitch and I will check them out. Okay, cool. So now that this is drawn in there, I'm going to go ahead and add the backpack I need. So first things first, just go to Dam Standard, DS. See if local symmetry still works for this here. Z plugin, transform, activate symmetry. Maybe Z, X. All right, does not work in place, which is strange. Local symmetry should really work, even if you've rotated the whole thing a little bit. Nah, does not. Oh well. All right, need the backpack there. Need my reference image pulled up on my right-hand side. There it is. All right, turn solo off so I can see what's happening as well. Basically, that's the point where I want to start it. Sometimes I say something like Siri, and then Siri just responds. You can tell I don't really care about being perfect with this kind of thing, because like I told you already, this is step 1. This is laying it out, and then it gets retopologized. So it looks like this side of the back needs a bit more. I'll just probably end up rotating it. But let's extend it out to where it would need to be. Something like here. Can't let being a perfectionist actually stop you from making things. You gotta make. Making is #1 priority. And then you can perfect. Because the beginning is kind of all finding form and shape and angles and the important stuff. And the fun stuff. So you gotta have fun while doing the fun stuff. All right, looking at his reference, looks like there is basically the edge, which kind of sticks out, and then a whole bunch of pads. So let's make those pads. Looks like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pads. So if I make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect. And I can inflate these up to feel softer, more pad-esque. Move some of this around. Pinch some of these edges in. Go hit it with inflate again. There we go. So that's nice and rounded feeling. Like it would actually be somewhat comfy to carry. Although, I don't know why you would want to carry something this big unless you're in space. Because you need to carry everything you need. If you're a Space Pilgrim. Okay. Combination of like sculpting it on, smoothing it, pinching away. Like I always tend to over sculpt and then remove detail. Make sure my Dynamesh is on. There we go. Dynamesh that. Smooth, smooth, smooth. All right, let's clean up this edge now by, I think the best way to do that is by adding something along the edge, kind of extruding out, because that's what he's got in his reference. It's kind of like an additional thing. Now there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can kind of try to, what is the word? Mesh extract something, but that'll be just a bit uneven. Let me go ahead and do it a bit more procedurally. Let's see. Best way to do that would be to append a cube. So append a cube 3D, probably. That up, turn everything else off. And the scale, move and rotate it in place. I don't know, might have been better to just do the mesh extract thing, because this is probably taking too long. So I'm going to toss it. I'll do the mesh extract thing. What is a mesh extract thing? Well, it just means you select the edge that you want. So I'll just select these outer edges. Make sure I get all that nice and selected. I don't want to unselect the inner edge. So I'll go to my mask lasso and just draw the part I want to unselect. And then go back to my mask pen, refine that shape a little bit. Refine that border edge. Cool, cool. Clean that up. Just a smidge. Okay, now we can do a mesh extract and get something in place for where we need it. Let's try that, accept that, select it, smooth it, Smooth it again. Smooth it again. And that gives us a little beveled edge kind of thing going on. Going to inflate it up as well. Make it nice and thick. Dynamesh it again. Oh, Dynamesh it for the first time. At least 700 resolution. Smooth it out again. That gives us the beveled edge we want. It gives us something that's already in place, exactly where we need it to be. Even out the thickness on all the sides for it. And then I will just hit it with H polish. And it's going to start resembling the reference. This is a very hacky approach to hard surface stuff, but it does the job for layout, which is exactly what we need right now. Coming with damn standard on the inside of this, really enhance the inner edge of those pads. As if there really is some seaming going on. Okay, cool. Dynamesh that. The Dynamesh looks like it did. And now we're ready to H polish the outside of this. I'll select it again. Go to my H polish tool and just start making a bit more hard surface. It's finding the edges. Okay. I'm going to hit the whole thing with H polish. Hit the whole thing with smooth. I imagine that edge shouldn't be too sharp, but you do want it to look more mechanical or more hard surface. I'm just going to hit the inside of this edge with a bit of pinch so I can really clearly define it. And I'll probably do that on the outside as well. Should have done this at symmetry. That's fine. It's a bit fun to just sculpt without symmetry sometimes. Can't rely on it too much, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and do the outside as well. pull up the chat window again. See if you guys are asking any questions. Hey, cool. That's a good question. Hey, you spend enough time, you can take something that's really lumpy and make it pretty good, hard surface looking. We don't need to do that. We just need to lay it out. If I get enough detail on there, instead of rebuilding this thing, I might just retopologize it. That might be smarter for this particular case. Alright, since we spent almost the entirety of the stream on this backpack, I might as well take it a few steps further. And this was backpack day. Might work on the head and clothing and the body a bit more next week during stream. And then I think we'll print it out next week. Because right now, it's just the backpack that's detailed, not the body. So no sense in printing it out. Okay, so what I want to do with this is merge it down. Looking good. And what I want to do is add some of the stuff that he had in here already. So, what? Thought I select moved. Ah. Sometimes ZBrush does things that don't make sense. Like move topological should be MT, not MV. That doesn't make any sense. Move topological allows you to basically move around the mesh of whatever you have on top of it. Well, how should I explain this? Move topological allows you to work with meshes with multiple topology and only affect the topology that's right, that's where you're affecting, where your brush is at. Okay. Dynamesh this whole thing together. Cool, cool. And I'm going to go to my insert, primitives, cylinder. It looks like he's got a lot of bolts in the reference around the edges. So I'll add some of those bolts in there. I want to make sure these are buried into my mesh. So I'll go ahead and reduce the depth. Yep, cool. Try to space them out relatively evenly. Keep them all relatively the same size. And I think he had a couple of these bolts up top too. This bolts and stuff, this is what adds the kind of hard surface feel to something. Bolts, vents, things like that. Select that piece. Get a bit bigger. Make sure some of these are all the right scale. Some get smaller than others. All right. Don't want them sticking out too much because that'll actually be painful, which is kind of the antithesis of a comfortable backpack area. Let's see. Auto groups. You can go to poly groups and group similar. I think there's a group similar. Yeah, merge similar groups. And that'll basically merge all of those guys into one. I can hide them and I can split hidden. And then I've got them on their own layer. And then I can do stuff like dynamesh them and smooth them out and move them in, things like that. Let's move all of them in just a smidge. There we go. And let's also smooth them out a bit. So under deformation tab, I can smooth them all at the same time. I can hit some of them with inflate. Just match the scale of everything else. Move some of them too. Make them nice and centered in that little mesh area. All right. And now merge them back down into the bag. So you can see I tend to merge stuff into my main model as soon as I can. I don't really care to keep things separate because I'm not trying to get a perfect hard edge surface look out of ZBrush. Alright, looks like there's some bold stuff happening up here. Insert primitives, just my depth. Okay. Scale that up. Alrighty. Same thing on this end. Alright, let's go ahead and do those tubes sticking out and going into the gloves, and that can be kind of one of the last things today. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Alright, backpack is in a good place. Save the scene again. I'll probably adjust this because I think the strap should be closer to starting from here. But I'll keep messing around with it. Okay, so what I want to do now is go to my curves. So I can go to C. So there's curved tubes. And I want to go to curved straps, I think for the straps, and tubes for the tubes. Multi-tube. I don't want a snap tube. I want a curved tube first. And that's what we'll use to make these holes, make the tubes coming out of these holes. So let's try it. Let's just see what happens. So you can see it basically draws it out for us, and the size of the brush determines the size of the... I thought it adjusts the size based on the draw size, and you tap on it again. That's fine. I'll just draw it again. And we want it to go inside his hand right here. Coming out of the back of the tube into the hand. A bit hard to control. Trying to find the angle. move the whole thing after the fact too. And looks like on that side, it just kind of sprinkles down and moves in. Phone hasn't stopped beeping today. There we go. That gives us a good starting point for what we're after with that. So I'll just click anywhere and drop that selection. Smooth it out a bit. Start getting it to where I need it. Looks like it's gonna go into his glove. Once his fingers are all laid out on the ground there. Looks like it moves up a little bit. So a bit parallel with the arm. Then does it go back from the back? No, just up at the top. Like that. I think I'm going to have it rest a little bit on this leg to just give additional support structure to it. Move it in. Cool, that's one. Let's do the other side. And that's going to go into his arm right there. Curve tube. Nope, not curve tube snap, just curve tube. Yikes, that's a big brush. Also very big. Really shoe. Alright, let me try curve tube snap and see if it works any better. There it is. Yeah, quite a bit better because at least it snaps there. Makes it a bit way longer than it needs to be, but I think that's fine because we can adjust it. It just gave me the shape I wanted much quicker. Okay, that's way too long and wriggly and weird, so I guess I will go back to curve tube. And I'll start maybe from this end. There we go. Doesn't quite reach, so I'll make it a bit longer. And then move it into place. That's a good workflow. Let's have a little back and forth, little dance. Looks like it wraps around his arm, goes over his leg, goes down a little bit, and then up into the bag. Cool, cool. Drop that selection, and just sculpt it into place. Looking at this, I want to make sure it's above the knee. Even if not quite above the arm. Okay, drop that. There we go. Got a couple of tubes. All right, it is now 10 o'clock, the time I usually sign off. So I think that was a pretty productive session as far as the backpack goes. Got a lot of the base shapes drawn out and refined. I'll probably keep sculpting it out to figure out the proper placement of things, because I think that this little seatbelt area should be kind of closer to here. So I need to figure out how to make that happen, because this circle, if it's too large, if it's large enough to where the seatbelt gets where I want it to be, then this flap can't be that big. But if I want that flap to be, you know, not so thin, I can't make that circle too big. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. I may end up just extending this longer so it's more oval shaped rather than circle. We'll see. But solid start on this. I'm going to add the seat belts in and continue the rest of the body and the face next week. And we'll take this to 3D print probably next week. If not, then week after. Say this is Logan 2. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me, everyone. Another time, I want to remind you that today is the day that my mobile game beta goes live. So if you want to sign up for email updates and help me beta test my augmented reality app for iPhone, then just go to Fungusors.com and sign up. And then you get to try to see one of my characters that I've model textured, rigged, and animated in your phone, and then interact with it and give me some feedback. That would be much appreciated. All right, no more questions on Twitch. We are all wrapped up on Facebook. Thanks for joining me, Ryan, and everyone else. Thanks for joining me, all. And I'll see you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Monday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. as well. Pacific Standard Time. All right, everyone. See ya.